Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Starkside. While you're here, I do appreciate it if you support the channel by hitting that like button. And if you're new here, please hit that subscribe as well as the notification bell. So today we'll be taking a look at the ZD Toys Iron Man 3 movies Iron Man Mark 33. So here we have the figure on the rotating base. Like the Mark 17, I got this piece during my Hong Kong trip last November. And this armor is also part of Iron Man's Iron Legion, and ZD Toys is currently making all of the armors that are part of the Iron Legion. So I'm very excited to collect all of those eventually. Now, unfortunately, ZD Toys has only made LED versions of Iron Man's main armors, which are mostly those that are outside the Iron Legion, which is from Mark 8 to Mark 41. That's why we don't have an LED version of the Mark 33 armor here. Now, before we take a closer look at the figure itself, let's go over the packaging and the accessories. So the Mark 33 comes in this sleek looking packaging for ZD Toys Iron Man. We get an image of the armor here at the front. Then at the upper right corner it says ZD Toys. Then at the bottom here it says Iron Man 3. Then we also get a Roman numeral for Mark 33 and a Disney logo to show that this is an officially licensed toy line. At this side it says Iron Man 3 again. Then at the other side, we get another movie logo plus the Mark 33 in this fight pose. Then we have another ZD Toy sticker here. At the back, we get some nice renders of the figure as well as a few shots of the figure in some poses. And lastly, as with all ZD Toys packaging, the door here is magnetized. As for its accessories, so opening this box here, you first see a clamshell for Iron Man. Then behind it is another clamshell for his accessories. And like with most ZD Toys Iron Man figures, the Mark 33 comes with some basic accessories for Iron Man. So it comes with a bunch of alternate hands, so we get a pair of fisted hands, two pairs of repulsor blast hands with no peg holes for blast effects. So these two pairs are different in terms of the way the peg hole here at the wrist is done. So this first pair here, this looks like it's for a non-combat pose or when the armor is deactivated because of the way the peg hole here at the wrist is done. Then for the second pair, this looks like it's used for combat poses because of the way the peg hole here is done. So you'd have the repulsor hands up and running for a fight. And next, we also get a pair of repulsor blast hands that have peg holes for blast effects. And of course, we got the blast effects themselves, which look really good. So these look really consistent with what we get with the previous ZD Toys Iron Man figures. As always, I like the orange gradient that we get here. That's awesome. We also get a pair of blades here for the Mark 33. If you remember that scene in Iron Man 3 where he chops off Aldrich Killian's arm, so that's where we get these blades. And these blades actually go with the fisted hand, so you can remove these small armor plates here and replace them with these blades. And that just looks really cool. And lastly, like with most Iron Man figures from ZD Toys, we get this flight stand here. It has this cool, sleek, simple design to it. It has the Iron Man 3 logo here. I do wish it came with a Mark 33 label instead to differentiate it from the other armors in your displays. But still, this looks really cool. Now, taking a look at the figure itself, I am really loving how ZD Toys is doing their Iron Man figures. Personally, I think the Mark 33 here is one of the Iron Legion's most iconic armors, mainly because it's based on a cool armor design from the comics, and I think ZD Toys has done an excellent job adapting this in action figure form. So the Mark 33 is codenamed Silver Centurion, much like the armor that it's based on, which is the Iron Man Armor Model 7. So this specific armor was made and used by Tony Stark against Obadiah Stane, and it was also used in the first Armor Wars. Fun fact too, the word Centurion refers to a commander in the ancient Roman army, and it's probably why the MCU version of the armor has hidden blades in its arms. Anyway, let's take it off the rotating base and take a closer look. First things first, looking at the head sculpt, I think this looks amazing. I think the silver on this is super clean. So the design of the faceplate here is a bit different from the usual Iron Man helmet. Besides the fact that this armor uses silver instead of gold, the faceplate here looks a bit more compressed, for lack of a better word. Like if you compare it with the Mark 6 here, these two areas at the top don't go that far upwards, they're not as long. Then you also get some lining here at the middle, which is also present in most armors in the Iron Legion. But this figure seems to use gunmetal gray instead of black paint for most of these lines. Like the head sculpt, the rest of the figure looks really awesome. I think the level of detail that we get on the sculpt here is just really good. This figure is also both very film accurate and comic accurate. Like the armor design in the comics, the MCU version also has these kind of oversized or wide shoulder pads. So ZD Toys was able to capture that feature in action figure form. We also get some sculpted machinery here around the base of the neck. And if you look at the arc reactor, we get more details on that as well. That's awesome. I do wish they painted the arc reactor somehow, and the lenses too, since they never made an LED version of this figure. But then again, you could do some digital editing to add those effects, so the lack of paint on these doesn't really bother me that much. The legs also look great. I'm loving how clean both the red and the silver are on this. Wow. Also, at the back here, we get some added details in the sculpt. We get a minor paint issue here, which I'm fine with. We don't get any articulated flaps at the back with this figure, but that doesn't really bother me that much. Additionally, you don't see any marbling here on the figure, so that's great. The gunmetal gray paint on the lines here is pretty much consistent. I don't think I've noticed any of the painted lines being off target, so that's awesome. Other than what you've seen so far, I don't have any major complaints with this piece here. So overall, I love the sculpt and paint apps of this figure. Now let's go over the articulation on this figure. As the head is on a ball peg, the neck articulation is going to be limited. So you can look up that far, which I actually think is really good, and downwards as well. His head does rotate. We do get some neck pivot on this figure. It's not a lot, but you can pivot it a bit. His arms can move up that far, and the shoulders here are actually already extended. Just something that I want to point out, I really love how the shoulders here are done. So these shoulder pads actually slide upwards and they slide over his shoulders seamlessly too to make way for the arms. Anyway, he can also move them down all the way, so that's great. We also get butterfly joints, which for me is always great to have. His shoulders rotate 360. We get a bicep swivel that's kind of hindered by the shoulder pads, double jointed elbows, and unlike Marvel Legends, his wrists are on a ball peg so you can move them in all directions, so that's awesome. He has a diaphragm pivot, which unfortunately doesn't seem to extend for more posability. Mine here actually pops off when I try to extend it, so because of that, the range of motion here is going to be very limited. Moving on, his legs can kick forward that far and backward as well. Unlike the shoulders, you can extend it so you get drop down hips, so his legs can kick forward and backward even further than before. And because of the drop down hips here, his hips can move outward that far, so that's great. He has a thigh swivel, double jointed knees. Unlike his wrists, his ankles are on a ball joint so he can move them in all directions. Now for some figure comparisons, here's the Mark 33 armor next to some other ZD Toys Iron Man figures that I've reviewed so far. We have the Mark 6, Mark 17, Mark 42, and the Mark 85. And I gotta say, it makes me happy to see Iron Man figures that look like they're made of actual metal side by side. So that's my review of the ZD Toys Iron Man Mark 33 Silver Centurion armor. I think this figure has a decent amount of accessories. The packaging is cool. I think this figure has an awesome sculpt and excellent paint job. Lastly, while the articulation is limited in the torso area, you can do basic Iron Man poses. And I also want to point out that this figure seems to have more neck articulation than the previous ZD Toys Iron Man figures that I've reviewed. And being an iconic Iron Man armor design, I'm really loving this figure. And if you're wondering where I got this figure, so I got this figure from Ince Point at Hong Kong. So if you want to check out my Hong Kong toy hunting vlog, there is a link in the description below. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think of this figure. Let me know what you think of my review. Please leave a comment below. And if you like this video, I do appreciate it if you support the channel by hitting that like button. And if you still haven't, please hit that subscribe as well as the notification bell. You can also follow me on social media, links in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video.